I've worked as a bank teller at Silverlake Savings for almost 20 years. The place has a history as old as the town itself, with stories of a botched robbery decades ago that left many dead. Most of us thought those were just ghost stories to spook new hires. After what happened last Friday, though, I'm not so sure anymore. It started like any other day. We were close to closing time when I noticed a group of 5 men loitering outside. They looked out of place, and a chill ran down my spine. I brushed it off and went back to my work, but that feeling of unease wouldn't go away. Then they came in, guns drawn, yelling for everyone to get down. Customers screamed, and I dropped behind the counter, my heart pounding. Julie and Tom, my colleagues, were frozen with fear, and Mr. Clarkson, our manager, looked like he was about to have a heart attack. "Everyone down. Now," shouted the leader, a tall man with a deep voice. Tom stumbled to his feet, trying to open the vault, his hands shaking so badly he could barely work the keypad. The robbers spread out, one heading towards Mr. Clarkson's office, another towards the lobby, keeping an eye on us. Just as Tom managed to get the vault open, the lights flickered and went out completely. Panic erupted in the darkness. I fumbled for my phone to use as a light, but before I could, a scream pierced the air. When the lights came back on, one of the robbers was on the floor, his throat slashed open, blood pooling around his body. The others stared in shock, their guns swinging wildly. What the hell happened? The leader demanded, his voice tinged with fear. None of us had an answer. The air felt thick and oppressive. Every shadow seemed to move with a life of its own. "Get back to work." The leader snapped at his men, trying to regain control. "We're getting out of here." The lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness. Another scream echoed through the bank. The lights came back on, and another robber was gone. Not dead, just gone. The remaining 3 robbers were visibly shaken. The leader tried to keep his composure, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He barked orders, trying to hurry his men along, but the atmosphere had changed. The old bank felt like it was closing in on us. The power went out again, and this time I felt a cold hand brush against my arm in the darkness. I bit back a scream, using my phone to cast a weak light. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe, and I caught glimpses of movement, shapes that shouldn't be there. The lights flickered back on, and the leader's right-hand man was sprawled on the floor, his face twisted in terror, his body riddled with what looked like claw marks. The leader swore loudly, backing away from the scene, his gun shaking in his hand. "Enough," he shouted. "We're leaving. Now." But the power had other ideas. The lights went out again, plunging us into darkness. This time, I heard a low, guttural growl, something primal and ancient. The remaining robbers screamed, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of fear. When the lights flickered back on, only the leader was left. He stood in the middle of the room, his eyes wild, his gun hanging limply at his side. He turned slowly, looking at each of us, his face pale and haunted. What is this place?" he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. Before anyone could answer, the power went out again. This time, the darkness was absolute, suffocating. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear the leader's ragged breathing, his panicked footsteps as he stumbled around the room. And then, silence. When the lights flickered back on, the leader was gone. The bank was eerily quiet. The only sounds the faint hum of the machinery and the soft sobs of the customers. Julie and Tom were huddled together, their faces pale and drawn. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and made my way to the front door. It was locked from the outside, but the robbers had left their tools behind. I fumbled with the lock, finally managing to get the door open. The police arrived moments later, flooding the bank with their flashing lights and barking orders. They found the bodies of the robbers, but no sign of the leader or the other two. The investigators were baffled, their faces grim as they tried to piece together what had happened. I gave my statement, but I left out the details about the power outages and the shadows. I knew they wouldn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed it myself. The bank was closed for a week while they conducted their investigation. When we finally reopened, the atmosphere was different. The old building felt even more oppressive. The shadows darker, the air heavier. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something was lurking just out of sight. One evening, as I was closing up, Julie approached me. She looked just as haggard as I felt, dark circles under her eyes and a haunted look on her face. "Dan, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. I nodded, leading her to the break room where we could have some privacy. She closed the door behind us and took a deep breath. "I can't take it anymore," she said, her voice breaking. "The nightmares, the feeling that something is watching us, I don't think it's just in our heads." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "What do you mean?" "I did some research," she continued, her hands shaking. "There was a robbery here, decades ago. But it wasn't just a robbery. It was a massacre. The robbers killed everyone in the bank, including themselves. They say the place is haunted by their spirits, trapped here, seeking revenge. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. And you think what happened last Friday? It was them," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm sure of it. The spirits of those who died in that massacre. They're still here, and they're protecting this place." I wanted to dismiss her words as nonsense, but deep down I knew she was right. The events of that night, the unexplainable deaths of the robbers, the oppressive atmosphere, it all pointed to something supernatural. "We need to do something," Julie said, her voice desperate. "We need to find a way to put the spirits to rest." I nodded, though I had no idea how we could possibly do that. "We'll figure it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. That night, I went home and did my own research. I found articles about the robbery, detailing the gruesome deaths and the rumors of hauntings that followed. I read about similar cases, other places where violent events had left behind restless spirits. The more I read, the more convinced I became that Julie was right. The next day at work, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move, every noise seemed amplified. The customers came and went, oblivious to the terror that lurked within the old building. After closing, Julie, Tom, and I stayed behind to discuss what we could do. We talked about bringing in a priest or a medium, someone who could help us deal with the spirits, but finding someone who believed in this sort of thing and was willing to help wasn't going to be easy. As we were talking, the power went out again. We all froze, the memories of that night flooding back. The emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow over the room. "We need to get out of here," Tom said, his voice shaking. Before we could move, the temperature in the room dropped, and we could see our breath misting in the cold air. A low, guttural growl echoed through the bank, and the shadows seemed to shift and twist. "We're not alone," Julie whispered, her eyes wide with terror. A figure emerged from the shadows, its form twisted and grotesque. It was one of the robbers, his face contorted in a mask of rage and pain. He moved towards us, his eyes burning with hatred. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Julie's hand and pulling her towards the door. We stumbled through the darkness, the figure close behind us. The old building seemed to close in on us. the walls narrowing, the shadows pressing in. We reached the front door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the building itself was conspiring to keep us trapped. "Help!" Tom shouted, pounding on the door. The figure reached out, its cold, dead hands brushing against my back. I turned, swinging my flashlight wildly, but it passed right through him. The spirit let out a howl of rage, and I felt a searing pain in my chest. "Keep moving," I shouted, pushing Julie and Tom towards the back door. We ran through the labyrinthine halls of the bank, the figure close behind. The building seemed to twist and change around us, the shadows growing darker, the air growing colder. We reached the back door, and with a final, desperate effort, we managed to break it open. We stumbled outside, gasping for breath, the cold night air a welcome relief. The figure stopped at the threshold, its eyes burning with hatred as it watched us. "We need to find help," Julie said, her voice shaking. I nodded, though I wasn't sure who we could turn to. The police wouldn't believe us. A priest or a medium seemed like the only options, but as I looked back at the old bank, something shifted in my mind. "Wait," I said, stopping Julie and Tom. What if we don't try to get rid of them?" Tom frowned. "What do you mean? What if we use them?" I suggested, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "What if we let the spirits protect the bank from future robberies?" Julie's eyes widened in realization. "You mean let them stay? Use their hatred to keep others out?" I nodded. "It's not ideal, but it's clear they don't want anyone stealing from here again. If we can make peace with them, maybe we can coexist." Tom looked uncertain, but Julie slowly nodded. "It might work. We just need to find a way to communicate with them. Make sure they understand we're not the enemy." We spent the next few days researching how to communicate with spirits. We found an old book in the local library that suggested using objects from the time of the haunting to establish a connection. We gathered some old coins and papers from the bank's archives and set up a small shrine in the break room. That night, we stayed late again, the building silent and foreboding. We arranged the items on the shrine and lit a candle, sitting in a circle around it. "We come in peace," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "We know what happened here, and we understand your pain. We don't want to drive you away. We want to make a deal." The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to gather around us. A low whisper echoed through the room, and I felt a presence brush against my mind. "We will let you stay," Julie said, her voice steady. "We won't disturb you, and we'll make sure the bank stays as it is. All we ask is that you protect this place from those who mean harm." The whisper grew louder, a multitude of voices overlapping. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear: anger, pain, a deep sense of betrayal. But then, slowly, it shifted to something else. Acceptance. The candle flickered, and the shadows seemed to retreat slightly. The temperature in the room rose, and the oppressive feeling lifted just a bit. "They agree," Tom whispered, his eyes wide with awe. "They'll stay, and they'll protect the bank." Over the next few weeks, we noticed a change in the atmosphere. The bank still felt old and haunted, but the oppressive weight had lifted. Customers came and went, unaware of the spirits watching over them, and we, the workers, learned to coexist with the ghosts of the past. We never had another robbery. The spirits made sure of that. The few times someone tried, they were met with the same fate as the robbers from that fateful night. The police eventually stopped investigating, writing off the incidents as accidents or disappearances. We never spoke of it outside our circle. The bank continued to operate, a silent guardian watching over us. And while the shadows still danced and the air still grew cold, we knew we were safe. The spirits of Silverlake Savings had found a new purpose, and in their eternal vigil, they protected us all.